The owner chained up the dog and left, but then something incredible happened. On the cobblestone streets of New York City, where the aroma of freshly ground coffee mingled with the bustle of street vendors, Jack Thompson walked distractedly towards his workplace. He was a man in his 30s, his face weathered by experiences he preferred to keep silent. His eyes, a deep brown, seemed to carry the weight of 1,000 untold stories. That October morning, the grey sky threatened to unleash a torrential downpour at any moment. Jack adjusted his jacket, protecting himself from the cold wind that blew between the skyscrapers. His steps led him to a familiar intersection, where the daily routine was about to transform into something extraordinary. That's when he saw it. On the corner, tied to a drain, lay a white dog. The animal was visibly shaking, its coat a dirty and tangled mess. The dog's eyes, a crystalline blue, conveyed a desperation that hit Jack like a punch to the stomach. The damp ground and inclement weather had left the dog in a pitiful state. Jack stopped in his tracks, unable to take his eyes off the abandoned creature. At that moment, something inside him shuddered. It wasn't just compassion he felt. It was a deep and visceral understanding, as if somehow he could comprehend the animal's pain from his own experience. Without thinking twice, Jack approached the dog. With each step he took, he felt his heart beating harder. The animal, at first wary, watched him with a mixture of fear and hope. Jack crouched down slowly, extending his hand cautiously. "Easy, buddy," he whispered softly. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dog, although fearful, didn't back away. It seemed to understand that this stranger posed no threat. Jack could then see, beyond the dirt and tangled hair, the inherent beauty of the animal. Its coat, though dirty, was pure white, and its blue eyes shone with surprising intelligence. The determination to help the dog solidified in Jack's heart. He couldn't simply ignore what he was seeing and go on his way. He had to do something. He had to free it from that inhumane situation. Looking around, Jack noticed a nearby house. He decided to seek help there, hoping to obtain some information about the dog and its situation. He approached the door and knocked firmly. After a few moments, an older woman opened the door, looking at him curiously. "Good morning, ma'am," Jack greeted politely. "Excuse the bother, but I was wondering if you could help me. There's a dog tied up on the corner and—" The woman interrupted him with a gesture of recognition. "Ah, yes, that dog. It belongs to the owner of the corner store. He ties it there to watch and scare away intruders." Jack felt indignation growing inside him. "Does he leave it there all the time, even in this weather?" The woman nodded sadly. "That's right. Many in the neighborhood have tried to talk to him, but he's a stubborn man. He says the dog is his property and he can do what he wants with it." Thanking the woman for the information, Jack returned to the dog. He looked into its eyes and saw reflected in them a pain that went beyond the physical. It was the pain of abandonment, of loneliness, of lack of love, a pain that Jack knew all too well. At that moment, he made a decision. No matter what it cost, he was going to get that dog out of there. He would give it a better life, a home where it would be loved and respected. With renewed determination, he headed towards the store the woman had mentioned. The doorbell tinkled as Jack entered. The interior of the store was dark and cluttered with various products. Behind the counter, a middle-aged man looked at him with distrust. "Good morning," Jack began, trying to stay calm. "I've come to talk about the dog you have tied up outside." The shopkeeper frowned. "What about it?" "I'd like to take it," Jack said directly. "You can't leave it out there in those conditions." The man let out a dry laugh. "And why should I give it to you? I've invested time and money in that dog. It's a good guard dog." Jack felt anger growing inside him, but he struggled to maintain his composure. "I'll pay you for it. Please, that animal needs a proper home." The shopkeeper seemed to consider the offer for a moment, but then shook his head. "It's not for sale. And now, if you're not going to buy anything, I suggest you leave." But Jack wasn't willing to give up so easily. The image of the dog shivering in the cold was etched in his mind, and he knew he couldn't live with himself if he abandoned it to its fate. "Please reconsider," he insisted. "That dog deserves a better life. I'm willing to pay whatever is reasonable." The argument began to attract the attention of passers-by. Gradually, a small crowd formed outside the store, observing the scene with interest. Some neighbors, recognizing the dog's situation, began to murmur among themselves, showing their support for Jack. The pressure of the growing crowd seemed to affect the shopkeeper. His face became uncomfortable, as he nervously looked at the people crowding outside his store. Finally, with a sigh of frustration, he gave in. All right, he growled. I'll sell it to you, but it won't be cheap." Jack felt immense relief. Although the price the shopkeeper was asking was high, he didn't hesitate for a second. He took out his wallet and counted the money, handing it to the man. With the deal closed, Jack quickly left the store, eager to free the dog. The crowd, which had witnessed the transaction, applauded his action. Some even offered to help, moved by Jack's compassion. As he approached the dog, Jack felt a mix of emotions. Joy for having managed to free it, but also deep sadness at seeing up close the conditions in which the animal was. The place where it had been tied was a real mess, full of excrement and urine accumulated for who knows how long. Carefully, he untied the leash that kept the dog prisoner. The animal, although distrustful, allowed Jack to touch it. Its blue eyes, previously filled with desperation, now showed a glimmer of hope. "Come on, buddy," Jack whispered softly. "I'll take you to a safe place." As they walked together, moving away from that corner of suffering, Jack knew that this was just the beginning of a long journey. The dog would need medical attention, care, and above all patience and love to recover from its traumatic experience. But looking into the eyes of his new companion, Jack felt absolute certainty. He would do everything in his power to give this dog the life it deserved, and perhaps in the process, they would both find the healing they so desperately needed. Jack walked through the streets of New York City with his new canine companion by his side. The dog, still fearful, moved forward with uncertain steps, casting nervous glances around. It was evident that the animal needed urgent medical attention, and Jack knew exactly where to go. A few blocks away was the veterinary clinic of his friend, Dr. Michael Anderson. Jack and Michael had known each other since college, and over the years they had maintained a solid friendship. Without hesitation, Jack headed there, holding the dog's leash firmly but gently. Upon arriving at the clinic, the receptionist, a young woman with a kind smile, greeted them with surprise. "Jack, what brings you here, and my goodness, what happened to this poor thing?" "Hi, Sarah," Jack greeted. "I need to see Michael urgently. This friend needs help." Sarah nodded understandingly and disappeared down a hallway. Moments later, she returned accompanied by Dr. Anderson, a middle-aged man with glasses and an impeccable white coat. "Jack, what a surprise to see you here," exclaimed Michael, but his smile faded when he saw the dog. "Well, I see you've brought a patient who needs immediate attention. Let's go to the examination room." Once inside, Michael began to carefully examine the dog. His expert hands palpated the animal's body, looking for signs of injuries or illnesses. The dog, although still scared, seemed to understand that they were trying to help and remained surprisingly still. "Tell me, where did you find him?" Michael asked as he continued with the examination. Jack briefly recounted the story of the encounter on the corner, the confrontation with the shopkeeper, and how he had managed to rescue the dog. Michael listened attentively, his face reflecting a mixture of compassion and concern. "Well, my friend, you've done something wonderful today," Michael finally said. "This dog shows clear signs of malnutrition and has some cuts and scratches that will need treatment. I'm also going to need to run some tests to rule out more serious illnesses." Jack nodded, prepared for whatever was necessary. "Do whatever you have to do, Michael. I don't care about the cost." Michael smiled at his friend's determination. "You know, Jack, you've always had a big heart. But taking care of a dog in these conditions won't be easy. It will require time, patience, and dedication." "I know," Jack replied firmly, "but from the moment I saw him, I knew I couldn't abandon him. I'll do whatever it takes to help him recover." The veterinarian nodded, admiring Jack's resolution. "Very well then. Let's start with a medicated bath to clean his coat and treat any skin problems. Then we'll administer some medications to combat possible internal and external parasites." For the next few hours, Jack remained at the clinic, observing and helping when possible. He watched as the dog's coat, once clean, revealed a pure white that contrasted dramatically with the state in which he had found him. As the treatment progressed, the animal seemed to relax a bit, as if it understood that it was finally receiving the attention it so desperately needed. While waiting for the results of some tests, Michael sat down with Jack to discuss the care plan. "He's going to need a special diet to help him regain weight," Michael explained. "You'll also have to apply these ointments to his wounds twice a day. And most importantly, Jack, he'll need a lot of love and patience. He's been through a traumatic experience, and it may take time for him to trust again. Jack listened attentively, making mental notes of each instruction. "I'll do whatever is necessary, Michael. This dog deserves a second chance, and I'm determined to give it to him." Michael smiled, recognizing the determination in his friend's eyes. "You know, I think you two found each other for a reason. Maybe you both needed to save each other." Those words resonated deeply with Jack. He thought about his own life, the struggles and challenges he had faced. Maybe Michael was right. Perhaps this dog not only needed to be rescued, but could also be the key to healing some of his own emotional wounds. When they were finally ready to leave, it was already night. Michael handed Jack a bag with medications, special food, and all the supplies necessary for the dog's care. "Remember, anything you need, I'm here," Michael said, giving his friend a hug. "And bring him back in a week for a checkup." Jack thanked Michael deeply and said goodbye. As they walked together towards the exit of the clinic, Jack looked at the dog, who now looked much better than when he had found him. "Well, buddy," he said softly, "it's time to go home." The dog looked at him, and for a moment Jack thought he saw a flash of gratitude in those blue eyes. Together they went out into the New York night, ready to begin their new life together. The journey home was quiet. The streets, now illuminated by streetlights, seemed different. Jack felt as if the world had changed in some subtle but profound way. He looked at the dog walking beside him, noticing how its steps, though still cautious, seemed more confident than before. Upon arriving at his apartment, Jack realized that he wasn't prepared to receive a dog. He had no pet bed, no toys, not even a water bowl. Improvising quickly, he filled a bowl with fresh water and placed it on the kitchen floor. "Tomorrow we'll get everything you need," he promised the dog, which was cautiously sniffing its new surroundings. That night, as Jack prepared for bed, the dog curled up in a corner of the living room, observing everything with alert eyes. Jack brought him an old blanket and placed it near him. "Rest, buddy," he whispered. "You're safe now." Lying in his bed, Jack reflected on the day's events. It had started like any other, but ended up changing his life in a way he never would have imagined. As he listened to the dog's soft breathing in the adjoining room, Jack realized that for the first time in a long time, he felt truly at peace. With that comforting thought, Jack closed his eyes, ready to face the challenges that would come with the dawn. The rescue had been just the first step. Now the real journey of recovery began, for both the dog and himself. The first rays of sun filtered through the curtains when Jack opened his eyes. For a moment he felt disoriented, as if something had changed in his usual routine. Then he remembered. The dog. He jumped up and headed to the living room, where he had left his new companion the night before. The dog was awake, sitting in the same corner where he had curled up to sleep. His blue eyes followed Jack's every movement, with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Good morning, buddy," Jack greeted softly. "How are you feeling today?" The animal didn't respond, of course, but its ears moved slightly at the sound of Jack's voice. It was a small gesture, but to Jack it meant a world of difference. It was the first indication that the dog was beginning to recognize him, to become familiar with his presence. Jack approached slowly and crouched down at a prudent distance. He extended his hand, allowing the dog to smell it if he wished. To his surprise, after a moment of hesitation, the animal approached and cautiously sniffed his fingers. "That's it, I won't hurt you," Jack murmured, containing the emotion in his voice. "We're in this together now." Determined to make his new friend feel as comfortable as possible, Jack got to work. The first thing was breakfast. Following Michael's instructions, he prepared a portion of the special food they had brought from the clinic. "Look what I have here," he said, placing the plate in front of the dog. "This will help you regain your strength." The dog looked at the plate with interest, but didn't move immediately. Jack stepped back a bit, giving him space. After a few minutes, the animal finally approached and began to eat eagerly. While the dog ate, Jack took the opportunity to make a mental list of the things they would need. A comfortable bed, toys, a new collar, more food. The list seemed endless, but far from feeling overwhelmed, Jack felt excited. Each item represented another step in building a new life for both of them. After breakfast, it was time to apply the medications. This would be the first real test of the trust they were building. Jack approached with the ointment in hand, speaking in a low and reassuring voice. "This might feel a little cold, buddy, but it will help you heal," he explained, although he knew the dog couldn't understand his words. However, the soft tone of his voice seemed to have a calming effect. To his surprise, the dog remained still as Jack carefully applied the medication to his wounds. There was a moment when the animal tensed, but a soft word and a gentle caress were enough to calm him down. "You're doing great," Jack praised, feeling a surge of pride and affection. "You're very brave." With the morning care completed, Jack prepared to go out. He had to buy the necessary supplies, and although he was worried about leaving the dog alone, he knew it was necessary. "I'll be back soon, I promise," he said, leaving enough fresh water and making sure the apartment was safe for the animal. The next few hours were a whirlwind of activity. Jack toured pet stores, carefully selecting each item. A soft and cozy bed, toys to keep the dog's mind stimulated, a new collar with an ID tag, although he still didn't have a name to engrave on it, and everything necessary to create a comfortable and safe space. While shopping, Jack couldn't help but think about how his life had taken such a drastic turn in just one day. 24 hours ago, he was a lonely man with a monotonous routine. Now suddenly he had a purpose, a responsibility, a living being that depended on him. Upon returning to the apartment, Jack found the dog in the same place where he had left him. However, he noticed that the animal raised its head when it heard the door, and its eyes seemed to light up when it saw him enter. "I'm home," Jack announced, feeling strangely excited to have someone waiting for him. "Look at everything I've brought you." Little by little, he unpacked the items, showing them to the dog and explaining what each one was for. The animal watched curiously, and at one point even approached to sniff a rubber ball that Jack had taken out of a bag. "Do you like it?" Jack asked, gently rolling the ball towards the dog. To his delight, the animal followed it with his gaze and, after a moment of hesitation, touched it lightly with his paw. That small gesture filled Jack's heart with hope. It was a sign that, little by little, the dog was starting to feel more comfortable, more at home. The rest of the day passed in a quiet routine. Jack worked from home, alternating between his laptop and caring for the dog. Every few hours he took a break to offer fresh water, food, or simply to sit nearby and talk softly to his new friend. As the sun began to set, Jack noticed that the dog seemed more relaxed. He no longer flinched every time Jack approached, and at one point even ventured to explore the apartment a bit, though always maintaining a prudent distance. That night, as Jack prepared dinner for both of them, he realized that he still hadn't thought of a name for the dog. He looked at the animal, who was now curled up in his new bed, watching him with those expressive blue eyes. "You need a name, buddy," he said aloud. "Something that reflects who you are, your spirit." As he served the dog's food, an idea popped into his mind. "How about Hope?" he asked. "Because that's what you represent. Hope for a new life, a new beginning for both of us." The dog raised his head at the sound of the word, as if understanding its meaning. Jack smiled. "Hope it is then." That night, as he prepared for bed, Jack reflected on the events of the last 2 days. It had been a whirlwind of emotions and changes, but he felt more alive than he had in years. "Good night, Hope," he whispered before turning off the lights. "Tomorrow will be another day of new challenges and small victories." And so, with the soft sound of Hope's breathing filling the silence of the apartment, Jack fell asleep, eager to see what the new day would bring for him and his new companion. The following days passed in a mixture of routine and discovery for Jack and Hope. Each morning brought small advances and new challenges. Jack marveled at how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. His apartment, once an orderly and somewhat sterile space, was now full of life and, occasionally, white fur. One morning, as Jack prepared breakfast, he noticed Hope watching him from his bed, his gaze more attentive and less fearful than in previous days. He decided to try something new. "Come here, Hope," he called softly, patting his leg. To his surprise and delight, the dog got up and cautiously approached. When he reached Jack's side, Jack couldn't contain a wide smile. "Very good, boy," he exclaimed, resisting the urge to pet him, knowing he wasn't ready for so much physical contact yet. "How you're very brave." These small moments of progress filled Jack with a joy he hadn't experienced in years. Every step Hope took towards trust was a victory they celebrated together. However, not everything was easy. Hope still had moments of fear and anxiety. One afternoon, while Jack was working on his computer, thunder rumbled in the distance. The effect on Hope was immediate and heartbreaking. The dog began to tremble uncontrollably, desperately seeking a place to hide. Jack, alarmed by Hope's reaction, set aside his work and slowly approached him. "It's okay, boy," he murmured, keeping his voice low and calm. "It's just thunder. It can't hurt you." But Hope was too scared to listen. He had crawled under the dining table and refused to come out. Jack sat on the floor near him, maintaining a respectful distance. "I know you're scared," he said softly, "but I'm here with you. I won't let anything bad happen to you." As the storm raged outside, Jack remained seated next to Hope, speaking in a calm and comforting voice. Gradually, the dog seemed to calm down, though he still trembled slightly. At that moment, Jack had an idea. He slowly got up and went to his bedroom, returning with a soft blanket. Carefully, he spread it near Hope. "Look, it's a safe place for you," he said, pointing to the blanket. "You can come here whenever you feel scared." To his surprise, Hope cautiously approached the blanket and, after sniffing it for a moment, curled up on it. Jack felt his heart swell with emotion as he watched the dog find comfort in something he had provided. As the days passed, Jack noticed that Hope was beginning to show more of his personality. He was no longer just the scared and distrustful dog he had rescued. There were moments when Jack saw flashes of playful curiosity in his eyes, especially when he presented him with a new toy or a special treat. One morning, as Jack was doing yoga in the living room, a practice he had taken up again since Hope's arrival, finding that it helped him manage stress, he noticed that the dog was watching him with great interest. Every time he changed position, Hope tilted his head as if trying to understand what Jack was doing. "Want to try?" Jack joked, doing a downward dog pose. To his amazement and amusement, Hope stretched, imitating his posture in a way that seemed almost deliberate. Jack couldn't contain his laughter. "Look at that, we have a canine yogi in the house," he exclaimed with joy. That small moment of connection and fun marked a turning point in their relationship. From that day on, Hope seemed more open to interacting, more willing to approach Jack on his own initiative. However, not everything was perfect. Jack soon discovered that caring for a dog with a traumatic past presented unique challenges. Hope still had moments when he startled at loud noises or sudden movements. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, Jack would hear him whimpering in his sleep, as if reliving past experiences. In those moments, Jack felt helpless, wishing he could erase all the pain Hope had experienced. But he knew that healing would take time and patience. One night, after a particularly difficult day when Hope had been more anxious than usual, Jack sat on the couch feeling exhausted. Hope, who generally kept his distance, approached and, to Jack's surprise, gently rested his head on Jack's knee. The gesture, so simple yet so full of trust, brought tears to Jack's eyes. Very carefully he extended his hand and, for the first time, Hope allowed him to gently pet him. "We're doing well, aren't we?" Jack whispered, his voice full of emotion. Step by step, day by day. That night, as he prepared for bed, Jack reflected on how his life had changed in the past few weeks. Before Hope, his days were a monotonous succession of work and loneliness. Now each day brought new challenges, but also new joys and discoveries. He looked at Hope, who was sleeping peacefully in his bed, and realized that he wasn't just helping the dog to heal and trust again. Hope was also helping him, reminding him of the importance of patience, compassion, and unconditional love. "Good night, Hope," he whispered before turning off the light. "Thank you for teaching me so much." And so, with the soft sound of Hope's breathing filling the room, Jack fell asleep, grateful for the unexpected gift that had entered his life in the form of a white dog with blue eyes and a brave heart. The morning sun crept through the windows of Jack's apartment, bathing the living room in a warm golden light. Hope, who now slept in his bed near the sofa, raised his head at the sound of Jack moving in the kitchen. His blue eyes, once filled with fear, now shone with a mixture of curiosity and anticipation. "Good morning, beautiful," Jack greeted, smiling as he saw Hope stretch and yawn. Ready for a new day of adventures? Several weeks had passed since Hope's rescue, and the transformation in both was remarkable. Jack, previously immersed in a monotonous routine, now woke up each morning with a renewed purpose. Hope, for his part, had flourished under Jack's constant care and love. As he prepared breakfast for both of them, Jack reflected on the progress they had made. Hope no longer cringed when he approached. Instead, he often followed Jack from room to room like a white furry shadow. The moments of panic at loud noises had diminished, though they still occurred occasionally. "Today is a big day, Hope," Jack announced as he served the food in the dog's bowl. "We're going for a walk in the park." Until now, their outings had been limited to brief walks around the building. Jack had wanted to give Hope time to adapt before exposing him to more stimulating environments, but he felt they were now ready to take the next step. After breakfast, Jack took the new leash he had bought for Hope. It was soft and padded, designed not to hurt him. Seeing the leash, Hope wagged his tail slightly, a gesture that still surprised and excited Jack every time it happened. "That's it, boy," he encouraged as he carefully put on the leash. "We're going to have a great adventure." The nearest park was just a few blocks away, but for Hope, every step seemed to open up a new world. His ears moved constantly, catching every sound, and his nose worked overtime, sniffing every post and bush they encountered along the way. Jack walked beside him, attentive to any signs of stress or anxiety, but to his joy, Hope seemed more curious than scared. Even when a cyclist passed close to them, Hope just watched with interest, showing no signs of panic. Upon reaching the park, Jack chose a quiet area under a large tree. He sat on the grass and gave Hope enough leash to explore a bit. The dog took a few cautious steps, sniffing the grass and nearby flowers. "You're doing very well," Jack praised, his voice full of pride. As he watched Hope explore his new surroundings, Jack noticed a woman approaching with a small dog. Instinctively, he tensed, worried about how Hope would react. The woman, noticing his concern, stopped at a respectful distance. "What a beautiful dog," she commented with a kind smile. "May I approach?" Jack looked at Hope, who was watching the other dog with curiosity but without fear. "Sure," he replied, "but slowly, please." "He's still adapting." The woman nodded understandingly and slowly approached with her dog. To Jack's surprise and delight, Hope showed no signs of stress. In fact, after a moment of hesitation, he took a step forward to sniff the other dog. "Looks like he's found a new friend," the woman commented, smiling as she watched the interaction between the two dogs. Jack felt his heart swell with pride and excitement. "It's his first outing to the park," he explained. "He's been through a lot, but he's making progress every day." The woman, who introduced herself as Emily, listened with interest as Jack briefly shared Hope's story. "What you're doing is wonderful," Emily said sincerely. "The world needs more people like you." As they chatted, Jack realized that this was the first time in a long time he had had a meaningful social interaction outside of work. Hope wasn't just healing, he was also helping Jack reconnect with the world. After a while, Emily said goodbye, but not before exchanging phone numbers with Jack. "We should organize a play date for the dogs," she suggested. "It would be good for Hope to socialize more." Jack agreed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervousness at the prospect of new friendships, both for Hope and for himself. The rest of the morning passed quietly. Jack and Hope explored different parts of the park, occasionally resting in the shade of the trees. By the time they decided to return home, Hope was walking more confidently, his tail slightly raised instead of hidden between his legs. Back in the apartment, Hope went straight to his bed, exhausted but visibly content. Jack watched him with a smile, marveling at how far they had come in such a short time. As he prepared lunch, Jack reflected on the morning. The outing to the park had been more than just a walk. It had been an important step in their journey together. Hope was learning to trust not only him, but also the world around him. And Jack, for his part, was rediscovering the joy of simple connections and the beauty of new beginnings. "You did great today, Hope," he said aloud, looking at the dog who was now sleeping peacefully. "I'm very proud of you." That night, as he prepared for bed, Jack realized that he could no longer imagine his life without Hope. The dog he had rescued on an impulse had become an integral part of his life, bringing with him lessons of patience, unconditional love, and the beauty of new beginnings. "Good night, my brave friend," Jack whispered. "More adventures await us tomorrow." And so, with the soft sound of Hope's breathing filling the room, Jack fell asleep, his heart full of gratitude and hope for the future they were building together. Time flew by for Jack and Hope. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. With each passing day, the bond between them strengthened, and Hope flourished under Jack's loving care. One Saturday morning, as Jack was enjoying his morning coffee, his phone vibrated with a message from Emily, the woman they had met at the park. "How about a play date today? There's a new dog park I'd like to try out." Jack looked at Hope, who was lying near his feet, looking at him with those blue eyes that seemed to understand every word he said. "What do you say, boy?" Are you ready for a new adventure? The wagging of Hope's tail was all the answer he needed. In recent months, they had made several trips to the park, and each time, Hope showed more confidence and curiosity about the world around him. A few hours later, Jack and Hope arrived at the new dog park. It was a spacious and well-maintained area, with play areas, obstacles, and even a small pool for dogs. Emily was already there with her dog, Max, a friendly Labrador that Hope had met in their previous encounters. "Hi, Jack. Hi, Hope," Emily greeted cheerfully. "What do you think of the place?" Jack looked around, impressed. "It's fantastic. I've never seen such a complete dog park." As they talked, Hope and Max greeted each other, sniffing each other enthusiastically. Seeing Hope interact so comfortably with another dog filled Jack with pride and joy. "He's progressed so much," Emily commented, observing Hope. "I remember the first time I saw him so cautious and scared. Now look at him. He seems like a completely different dog." Jack nodded, feeling a mix of emotions. "It's been an incredible journey. Sometimes I wonder who has changed more, him or me." As the dogs played, Jack and Emily chatted, sharing stories about their pets and their lives. Jack surprised himself by talking openly about how Hope had transformed his life, filling it with purpose and joy. "You know," Emily said thoughtfully, "there's a group of volunteers that works with local animal shelters. They organize adoption events, raise funds, and help rescued dogs find homes. I think you and Hope would be an inspiration to them." The idea immediately caught Jack's interest. "That sounds wonderful. Do you think we could participate in some way?" Emily smiled. "Of course. In fact, there's an adoption event next weekend. Why don't you come? You could share your story and maybe inspire others to adopt." Jack looked at Hope, who was happily running with Max at that moment. "I think we'd love to participate. What do you say, Hope? Do you want to help other dogs find their forever home?" As if understanding the question, Hope approached Jack and gave him a gentle nudge with his nose, making both Jack and Emily laugh. "Seems like it's a yes," Emily said. The rest of the afternoon passed with laughter, games, and conversations. Jack realized that thanks to Hope, he had not only gained a loyal companion, but was also forming new friendships and connections. Back home, while Hope slept deeply, exhausted from the afternoon of play, Jack reflected on Emily's proposal. The idea of being able to help other dogs to share his experience and maybe inspire more people to adopt filled him with excitement. He took out his phone and began to search for information about the adoption event. The more he read, the more enthusiastic he felt. There were so many ways to help, from sharing their story to offering advice to potential adopters, or even considering the possibility of being a temporary home for dogs waiting for adoption. "Look what you've done, Hope," he whispered, looking at the sleeping dog. "You haven't just changed my life, but now we could change the lives of many more." That night, as he prepared for bed, Jack realized that his journey with Hope was entering a new phase. It was no longer just about the two of them healing together. Now they had the opportunity to extend that love and healing to others. "Good night, my brave companion," he said softly, stroking Hope. "Tomorrow we begin a new chapter in our adventure." And so, with his heart full of gratitude and excitement for what was to come, Jack fell asleep, dreaming of a future where more dogs like Hope would find the love and home they deserved. The day of the adoption event arrived faster than Jack expected. That morning, as he got ready, he felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. He looked at Hope, who was watching him curiously as he moved around the apartment. "Today's a big day, boy," he told him, crouching down to pet him. "We're going to help other dogs find loving homes, just like you found yours." They arrived at the park where the adoption event was being held early in the morning. The place was buzzing with activity. Volunteers were setting up tents and cages, while the enthusiastic barking of dogs filled the air. Emily greeted them with a radiant smile. "I'm so glad you came," she exclaimed, hugging Jack and petting Hope. "I'll introduce you to the organizers." As they toured the place, Jack couldn't help but feel a pang in his heart, seeing so many dogs waiting to be adopted. Some wagged their tails enthusiastically, others watched timidly from the back of their cages. It reminded him of how he had found Hope, and he promised himself to do everything he could to help. The event organizers were delighted to have Jack and Hope. They assigned them a small stand where they could share their story and offer advice to potential adopters. As the day progressed, Jack was surprised at how natural it felt to talk to people about his experience. He shared the initial challenges, the moments of doubt, but also the immense joy and fulfillment he had found in caring for Hope. "It's not always easy," he told a young couple who were considering adopting, "but I can assure you that it's worth every moment. These dogs have so much love to give, they just need a chance." Hope, for his part, became the star of the event. His transformation from a scared dog to a confident and loving companion inspired everyone who heard his story. Many approached to pet him, marveling at his white coat and blue eyes, but even more so at his gentle and resilient spirit. During a break, while Jack was giving Hope some water, he noticed an older man observing the event from a distance. There was something in his gaze, a mixture of longing and doubt that caught Jack's attention. Leaving Hope in Emily's care for a moment, Jack approached the man. "Hello," he greeted kindly. "Are you considering adopting?" The man, who introduced himself as Robert, sighed. "I don't know. I lost my dog a few months ago and, well, I'm not sure I'm ready for another one." Jack nodded understandingly. "I get it. Losing a companion is hard, but, sometimes opening our heart to another can be part of the healing process." He invited Robert to meet Hope and told him their story. As he spoke, he noticed how the man's eyes softened, especially when Hope gently approached him, as if sensing his pain. "Each dog is unique," Jack continued. "It won't replace the one you lost, but it can bring new joy to your life, and there are so many here that need a home." Robert listened attentively, and by the end of the day, Jack saw him talking to the volunteers about the adoption process. Jack's heart filled with warm satisfaction, realizing that maybe he had helped change not just one, but 2 lives that day. When the event came to an end, Jack was exhausted but exultant. They had achieved several adoptions and many people had approached to ask for more information about how to help. "You did amazing today," Emily told him as they packed up. "You and Hope really made a difference." Jack smiled, petting Hope, who was dozing at his feet. "Thanks for inviting us. I think we've found a new passion." That night back at home, Jack reflected on the day. He felt full of new energy and purpose. He looked at Hope, who was watching him with those eyes that seemed to understand each of his thoughts. "You know something, boy?" he said softly. "I think this is just the beginning. There's so much more we can do to help." He took his laptop and began researching more about animal rescue organizations in the city. There were so many ways to contribute, from being a temporary home to helping organize events, raising funds, or even starting his own awareness project. As he planned and dreamed, Jack realized that Hope had not only filled a void in his life, he had given him a new purpose. Together, they could be part of something bigger, helping other dogs find the love and security they had found in each other. "Thank you, Hope," he whispered, leaning down to gently kiss his faithful companion's head, "for teaching me that there's always hope and that love can transform everything." And so, with his heart full of gratitude and excitement for the future, Jack went to sleep, dreaming of all the lives he and Hope could touch on their new journey together. The months following the adoption event were a whirlwind of activity for Jack and Hope. They had fully immersed themselves in the world of animal rescue, dedicating much of their free time to collaborating with different organizations and shelters. Jack had begun offering his apartment as a temporary home for dogs waiting for adoption. Hope, surprisingly, had adapted well to the constant arrival and departure of new canine companions. In fact, he seemed to enjoy his role as big brother, helping the Shire dogs feel comfortable and safe. One sunny summer afternoon, while they were walking in the park, Jack received a call that would change the course of their lives once again. "Jack, it's Michael, your vet," said the voice on the other end of the line. "I need you to come to the clinic as soon as possible." "It's about Hope." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What's wrong? Is everything okay?" "I'd rather discuss it in person," Michael replied, his voice serious. "Don't worry too much, but come as soon as you can." With his stomach churning with worry, Jack took Hope directly to the clinic. The whole way, he didn't stop petting him and talking to him softly, more to calm himself than Hope. At the clinic, Michael greeted them with a grave expression. After a thorough examination, he sat down in front of Jack with the results of Hope's latest tests. "Jack," Michael began carefully, "the tests show that Hope has a heart condition. It's not immediately dangerous, but it will require treatment and special care." Jack felt as if the ground was opening up beneath his feet. "But he's been doing so well, so active and happy." Michael nodded understandingly. "Dogs are incredibly resilient. They can hide their discomfort very well. But the good news is that we've detected it early. With proper treatment and some lifestyle changes, Hope can continue to have a happy and full life. Jack looked at Hope, who was watching him, with those blue eyes full of trust. He felt a fierce determination grow inside him. "I'll do whatever it takes," he said firmly. "Just tell me what we need to do." The following days were a period of adjustment for both of them. Hope had to take daily medications, and his walks had to be shorter and less intense. Jack rearranged his work schedule so he could spend more time at home and closely monitor his companion. One night, as he was giving Hope his medication, Jack couldn't help but feel a wave of guilt. "What if this is because of something I did wrong?" he wondered aloud. "Maybe I pushed him too hard with all the rescue activities." As if sensing his distress, Hope approached and rested his head on Jack's lap. He looked at him, remembering everything they had been through together. "No, this isn't anyone's fault," he told himself, gently petting Hope. "We'll get through this together like we've gotten through everything else." As the weeks passed, Jack and Hope adapted to their new routine. Although they could no longer participate as actively in adoption events or host as many temporary dogs, Jack found other ways to contribute. He started writing a blog about his experience with Hope, sharing tips on caring for rescued dogs and the importance of regular vet checkups. The blog quickly gained followers, and soon Jack found himself connecting with people from all over the United States and beyond. He received messages of thanks from people who had been inspired to adopt, or who had found comfort in his words during difficult times with their own pets. One day, while reviewing the comments on his latest post, Jack came across a message that left him breathless. "Hi, Jack. I don't know if you remember me. I'm Robert, the man you met at the adoption event a few months ago. I wanted to thank you. After talking to you that day, I decided to open my heart again. I adopted a wonderful dog named Luna. She has brought so much joy to my life. Your story with Hope gave me the courage I needed. Thank you for sharing your journey with us." Jack felt his eyes fill with tears. He looked at Hope, who was sleeping peacefully in his nearby bed. "See that boy?" he whispered. "We're still making a difference even from home." That night, as he prepared for bed, Jack reflected on the unexpected turns his life had taken. Hope's diagnosis had been a hard blow, but it had also taught him a valuable lesson about the fragility and preciousness of life. "Every day with you is a gift," he told Hope, curling up next to him on the couch. "And I promise to make the most of every moment we have together." As he gently stroked Hope's fur, Jack realized that despite the challenges, their journey together was far from over. In fact, he felt they were entering a new chapter, one filled with deeper love, richer understanding, and an even more meaningful purpose. "Good night, my brave companion," Jack whispered. "Tomorrow is a new day, and we'll face it together as we always have." And so, with the soft sound of Hope's breathing filling the room, Jack fell asleep, grateful for the unconditional love and invaluable lessons that his faithful friend continued to provide him each day. Time flew by, and before Jack knew it, 2 years had passed since that fateful day when he found Hope tied to a drain. Life had changed in ways he never would have imagined, and each day brought new joys and challenges. It was a cool spring morning when Jack woke up to the soft sunlight filtering through the curtains. Hope, as always, was curled up beside him, his breathing calm and steady. Despite his heart condition, with proper care and lots of love, Hope had maintained his cheerful spirit and contagious energy. Jack got up carefully, trying not to wake his faithful companion. He headed to the kitchen to prepare breakfast, a routine that now included carefully measuring Hope's special food and preparing his medications. As the coffee maker bubbled, Jack turned on his laptop to check his email. Among the usual messages, one caught his attention immediately. It was from a well-known publisher in the world of pet and animal care publications. With his heart racing, Jack opened the email. "Dear Jack, we have been following your blog Hope and Me for the past year, and we have been deeply impressed by the honesty, love, and wisdom you share in your posts. We believe that your story with Hope and your experiences in animal rescue could inspire many more people if shared in book form. We would like to offer you the opportunity to publish your story. Would you be interested in discussing this possibility with us? We look forward to your response. Sincerely, New Horizons Publishing." Jack read the message 3 times, unable to believe what he was seeing. A book about him and Hope, and the idea had never occurred to him, but now that he had it in front of him, he felt an indescribable excitement. At that moment, Hope entered the kitchen, his tail wagging softly at the sight of Jack. He crouched down to pet him, his eyes shining with tears of joy. "Look at this, boy," he said, showing him the screen even though he knew Hope couldn't read it. "They want us to share our story with the world. Can you believe it?" Hope tilted his head, as if understanding the importance of the moment. Jack couldn't help but laugh, remembering how that same curious look had captivated him that day on the street. As they had breakfast together, Jack reflected on everything they had been through. The initial challenges of adaptation, the stormy nights when Hope sought comfort in him, the joyful moments in the park, the diagnosis that had shaken them but also brought them even closer together. Every experience, every obstacle overcome, every small victory, all of it deserved to be shared. Determined, Jack responded to the email, accepting the proposal to discuss the possibility of the book. Then he took Hope's leash. "Come on, boy. I think today deserves a special celebration." Together, they went out for a walk in the park where they used to go. The place had changed a lot in the past 2 years. Thanks in part to Jack's efforts and those of other volunteers, it now had a special area for rescued dogs where people could come to meet and potentially adopt dogs in need of homes. As they walked, they ran into Emily and Max, who were now regular visitors to the park. Emily smiled when she saw them. "Jack, Hope, it's great to see you. How are you?" Jack couldn't contain his excitement and told her about the book proposal. Emily hugged him, genuinely happy for him. "That's wonderful. I always knew your story deserved to be shared with a wider audience. I'm so proud of you too." As they chatted, Jack noticed in the distance an older man walking with a dog. With a jolt of joy, he recognized Robert and Luna, the dog he had adopted after meeting them at the adoption event. Robert greeted them warmly, and soon, the 5 of them, 2 humans and 3 dogs, were sitting on a bench sharing stories and laughter. Jack watched as Hope played gently with Max and Luna. His energy adapted to his new limitations, but his spirit as bright as ever. At that moment, surrounded by friends, both human and canine, Jack felt a deep sense of fulfillment. His life had changed in ways he never would have imagined, all thanks to an impulsive decision to rescue an abandoned dog. "Fauno," Robert said, interrupting his thoughts. "When I lost my previous dog, I thought I'd never feel that kind of connection again. But thanks to you and Hope, I dared to open my heart again. You've touched so many lives. You don't even imagine how many." Jack smiled, moved by Robert's words. "I think that's the real gift Hope has given me. Not just his love and companionship, but the opportunity to make a difference in the world, however small it may be." As the sun began to set, painting the sky in golden and pink hues, Jack looked at Hope. His blue eyes, which were once filled with fear and distrust, now shone with love and happiness. "Let's go home, boy," he said softly. "We have a book to start writing." That night, as Jack sat in front of his computer, with Hope curled up at his feet, he began to write, "This is a story of hope, a story of how love can transform lives, not just that of an abandoned dog and a lonely man, but that of an entire community. It's a story about second chances, about the healing power of compassion, and about how sometimes in trying to save another, we save ourselves." Jack smiled, feeling that every word he wrote was a tribute to the incredible journey he had embarked on with Hope. He knew that no matter what the future held for them, they would face every challenge and celebrate every joy together, united by a bond of unconditional love that had transformed their lives forever. And so, with the soft sound of Hope's breathing as background music, Jack continued writing, sharing their story of love, hope, and redemption with the world.